Yes, and 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. Just working my way through Thessalonians, and this is a really familiar passage, the section at the end talking about the return of the Lord for his own. But I just struck thinking about their context and ours. Paul had obviously been in Thessalonica for a short period of time. He had spoken to them about a variety of things, but especially, it seems, the return of Christ. And they were looking forward to that. And yet, in the meantime, after he'd been there, before he'd written this letter, presumably some had died. And the absence of those individuals from the fellowship, from the gathering, left a hole, and it left an ache in the hearts of the people. And so he wrote to them and said, this is what's going to happen. I'll just drop in at verse 16. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a cry of command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the sound of the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will always be with the Lord. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. I suppose over the years there have been individuals who, in all of our churches, at our church Trinity, we haven't had a funeral yet, but we've only been going 6 years. But growing up, I remember people in our church passing away, and you'd miss them. You'd say, oh, they're not there anymore. But that's always been a very safe thing, a very old age thing, generally speaking, not always, of course. Right now, there's a very distinct possibility that when we're brought back together again after this time of being required to not meet together, that there could be some gaps. And I hope that's not the case at our church. I hope it's not the case at yours if you go to a different church. But it's a very real possibility that there will be some people who are no longer there, who, in Paul's terms here, are asleep in the Lord. And we don't need to be discouraged. Obviously, we'll be saddened deeply, but we don't need to be discouraged because they're not missing out. They're not somehow failing to experience in the future the return of Christ. The fact is, when Christ comes, those who have already died will be with him first, and then those who are alive, who are left, will be caught up together, and we will always be with the Lord. And therefore we should encourage one another with these words. Jesus is coming back, and this story, this experience, is not the whole story. What we're going through right now, what we may go through in the coming weeks or months, it's just for now, but he's coming, and that's going to be, well, that's the great hope, isn't it? That's the thing we look forward to, that we're going to see him, we're going to be with him forever.